Hello everybody, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Speedplay Italy in Hearts of Iron 3, number 5. We left off having secured most of the Mediterranean everywhere except for Iberia. So Operation Franco's Ghost is going to rectify that situation. Republican Spain is ideologically opposed to us and is letting the British have military access. As long as they exist, Gibraltar is going to be at threat. So what we're going to do, first of all, is pick up a bunch of infantry groups, really all of them that we can, and just get ready to move them over to Gibraltar. Our first group will be carried over pretty swiftly. We have a bit of technology to worry about. We're generally just going to focus on our infantry and our armor. We are kind of neglecting naval tech. Hopefully it won't be too significant. At any rate, we go over, and our plan is basically going to be we're going to pull our Marines out of Gibraltar, replace them with infantry. We're getting the infantry there first, though, just so the British don't swoop in and take it, then attack all of our forces in the Mediterranean, as that would suck a lot. We do have a bit of a rebellion problem, but we'll deal with that with all of our rebel hunting armies. We declare war on the Spanish. Our Marines, which we just picked up from Gibraltar, make short work of the Spanish. We send our entire air force to Gibraltar to just fight it out and hopefully do as much damage as possible. We've managed to secure Barcelona and change the leadership of our transport group, as they were a bit poorly led. And at this point, we are just going to pick up another group of infantry and move them over, collect the entire corps, and drop them off in Barcelona, where we will then pick up our Marines and drop them off at the yellow portion of the map. Once we get all that organized, and we'll go ahead and just begin dropping them off. It looks as though there isn't even a fight to be had. We begin expanding around the landing site just to secure it. So that is all going fairly according to plan at this point. Our final target is in southern Spain and doesn't look as though it has any defenders, but we'll still bring the Marines just to be safe. And we are winning and sinking a bit of the Spanish Navy, which is very good news. We pick up this third and final group of infantry, and we'll bring them over. We also are going to start constructing some mechanized units for actual use, hopefully encircling and defeating actual hostile armies that we'll actually end up fighting. The Spanish won't really need that, I certainly hope not. We are facing some rebellions, but we do have enough rapid response forces to take care of that. And now with our infantry in place, we'll begin attacking the Spanish around us and launching our naval expedition against southern Spain. Which, as I had mentioned, there aren't any hostile forces there, so that's going fairly well. The British attack in some large numbers and we lose a lot of transports, which is far less than ideal, and actually a significant problem. So that could have gone a lot better. Ultimately, though, we are still winning against the Spanish. We can't bring our entire armored group over in once because we lost enough transports that we don't have that capability anymore, which is sad. Ultimately, though, these two will hopefully be enough, and they shatter that one Spanish group. Not shatter, but push back. And we rush over to get the remains and also their corps in charge of them. Actually, I think we actually do have the corps with them. Yes, we do. Alright, so we're going to land with our Marines in the south and hopefully fully secure the Gibraltar region and go ahead and encircle these hostile forces. Over here in the middle of Spain, we're doing alright. In the north, things are going great. In the south, this encirclement is running out of supplies, but we managed to just bring that over. Hopefully we'll be able to rush over to Sevilla before they're able to stop us. And we're going to save the game really quickly because there's a British Navy trapped in the Mediterranean that can't escape, and I've had that crash the game before, so let's avoid that this time around. Alright, at any rate, we are doing fairly well. We have encircled a small group of enemy forces. A few managed to escape and get out, but that isn't too problematic, and we are having some issues with supplies and rebels. The rebels are being dealt with, and the supply situation should hopefully clean itself up in the near future. We are facing a lot of Soviet and also Nazi armies on our borders. Hopefully that's not indicative of anything about to happen. I can't imagine it is, although I am a little hesitant. We did leave all of our armies in Italy, though, and just pulled our forces from the east, so even in the worst of cases, we should be able to survive and defend ourselves fairly well. We're also making a straight shot for that victory point in the south, in the central southern area of Spain, and we're going to pull all of our armored units together to go make a rush through that central area up to the Spanish capital and hopefully force their capitulation. Alright, so with that all said, we've secured southern Spain. Northern Spain, we've gone as far as we need to. They don't have any victory points for miles and miles and miles, so it doesn't matter all that much. We start bringing Air Force elements to our central landing site, and we did get split apart, but we managed to take a port, so it doesn't matter that much. Our infantry, we're going to just keep sending up from the southern area. It looks as though there is an enemy armored division. That might be a problem. Hopefully not, though. And our armor is beginning their advance. They're going to cut straight towards the Spanish capital and hopefully just destroy any Spanish armies they can on the way. This is really going to be the central focal point for our forces, really, just in general, from here on out, as our infantry isn't going to be able to move quickly enough to get through the Spanish countryside, and hopefully neither is their infantry. So we're rushing forward. We managed to mostly encircle their capital. We do send our transport plane to just aerially resupply, and that seems to be giving us the slight edge we need to go and take their capital, which is pretty helpful. Infantry and other support elements are roving through. We have to build a large number of transports and escorts, or convoys and escorts, because we're really running low on that sort of thing. And we're probably going to have it get worse before it gets better. At any rate, our armor are now moving forward. We've taken the Spanish capital. We can remove our forces there, put our air force there, in Madrid, and start battling forward. We rush towards their new interim capital, and they don't have any men on it, so we're just going to race forward. It looks as though we're kind of pocketing all of their forces to the east of our armored divisions, so we're just going to cut our way over to their remaining victory points and hopefully knock the Spanish out of the war in the next few days, which would be quite nice. Their army is pretty much completely ineffective against us now. Our armored units are just far too quick, and in just a few days we'll be able to take their last victory point and hopefully just bring them to their knees. And there we go, Spain has fallen. We have achieved that operation. That is a great success. We're going to get some infantry onto all of the ports in the Atlantic just so that the British can't attack us and be a humongous problem. Speaking of, we just fought their navy and it was a bit of a problem. We sank a huge number of their ships though, which is great. Sadly and awkwardly, they do still have a carrier and 4 large ships that are just bouncing back and forth, apparently unable to be damaged. Which, while kind of annoying and is definitely going to interfere with our transport groups, isn't actually a game-breaking thing, as much as it is just a horribly tedious and somewhat broken thing that apparently is just going to forever be an issue in those 2 provinces. It isn't the end of the world. And they even sank one of our boats. What is this? We can't do any damage to them, but they sank one of ours? Alright, so that's just the thing we'll have to deal with. On the bright side, it is 1 British carrier, pretty much knocked out of the war. I don't think it's very well supplied or anything like that. And at any rate, we bring our forces to bear. We really nearly lose one of our transports, which is fairly upsetting, as that means they are really able to do some damage to us, while we don't appear to be able to do any damage to them, which is frustrating. At any rate, I guess it doesn't matter all that much. We're going to go ahead and attack Portugal just to fully secure the Iberian Peninsula, and we did a lot of damage to the British fleet. So hopefully that means we'll be able to actually move into Great Britain proper at some point, probably a year or 2 down the line, depending on how quickly we're able to replenish our transport ships that were lost and just knock Portugal out of the war. And it really depends on what Germany and the Soviet Union are doing. If the Soviets and the Germans go to war, which I really hope they will, it's getting a little bit late in 1941, so it's very possible that they just won't go to war, which would be a terrible, terrible disaster for us. Ultimately, though, we're not in charge of that. Either the Germans will attack the Soviets or they won't. What we are in control of is our own actions and our attempt to hopefully defeat the Portuguese, which we can bring to a beginning right now. We've pushed those British ships over to there. We're going to load up our Marines into some transports and try to take over some of the Portuguese territories. We launch a general offensive throughout the Portuguese countryside, which will hopefully bring us a swift victory. Now we do need to take over some of their colonial holdings to actually get enough of their victory points to force them out of the war. And I'm not entirely sure how quickly we'll be able to do that. Hopefully it'll all work itself out to be relatively at the same time, relatively close to the same time, although we are getting held up on our first naval invasion, so it isn't really looking too great. At any rate, on the mainland, we have already rushed through and split their country into a few pieces, which is pretty good news for us and terrible news if you're Portuguese. We've taken their first base, we'll roll down to the side of Africa and try to take the remaining victory points there. And yeah, that's basically how that's going to go, at least for a while. We can keep adding war goals against the French. We might even land on French Africa just because we can. And it's around this point that I realize, one of their victory points is deep inland, which means we're going to have a marine element just marching into the interior of Africa for a while. And two, since our navy is here, we may as well just start defeating all of these British countries nearby. We can't make it to South Africa, which is a bit annoying, but we can start taking all of the Allied ports throughout the side of Africa. Meanwhile, we've taken all the victory points in Portuguese Europe, so now it's just going to be a matter of cleaning up their armies. And we're going to take over this French last victory point, their current capital in exile, and really just keep roving around defeating whatever remaining Portuguese armies are left. The British Navy is fighting us, which is a bit troublesome, and we are losing some ships, so are they, luckily. In Iberia, things are mostly worked out. They do have some forces left, but nowhere near what they used to. And really the goal is now to take all of the Allied ports around Africa so that they won't be able to get their navies from, say, India and Southeast Asia over to really just defend the British home islands. I'm not sure the disposition of the British Navy right now, and it's equally as likely that we're just going to trap them around the British home islands and give the Japanese basically just a free hand in Southeast Asia. I'm alright with that. Admittedly, Japan has still not actually entered the war, which is great though, because that means the United States has not entered the war, and that is the best news we could get. Sadly, there isn't actually a port there. It's up to the province right off to the east, so that group of Marines is trapped until they take that. And we've run a bit long, about 15 minutes usually, or 15 minutes longer than I usually do, so we're going to cut it off right here and continue this next time. Thank you very much for watching. We did clean up Iberia though, that's good.